So we have a new shielder in the block right now. She's actually pretty good for a 4-star character. If you need a shielder and you don't have Zhongli, Layla is definitely the one to build. And this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to build her as a shielder and also maybe as a sub DPS. So yeah, let's begin. Alright, so starting off with her talents, we're going to explain them very quick. They're very simple, but since she's new, we're going to have to go through them. So her auto attacks are just going to be like normal physical auto attacks, nothing special about them. Generally, you don't really want to use them. Her elemental skill, when you tap it, you're going to have a shield around you. That shield is going to scale off based on your HP. Her shield is going to have a full uptime, and it's actually going to have very good scaling. So it's going to be pretty strong. It's probably like the second strongest in the game right now, after Zhongli. It depends on how you build her, but generally she has a very strong shield. Now, when you have the shield on, every 1.5 seconds, you're going to have like one charge. When you collect 4 charges, the shield is going to release them and you're going to deal damage. So these charges, when there are 4, they're going to shoot at an enemy. And they're going to scale off with attack, which is not really that good since most of her kit is going to scale with HP. So her elemental skill is not really going to be a great source of damage. But it's still like some extra damage and mainly like cryo application. And also, if you switch to another character and do your elemental skill, you're going to gain like 2 charges immediately. So you don't have to wait 1.5 seconds. You immediately gain 2 by using your elemental skill inside of the shield. But yeah, that's about it for her elemental skill. It's mainly just a shield that's gonna be attacking enemies. That's it. Now for her elemental burst, it's gonna put up like a thing on the field, a celestial dream sphere, whatever the that is, and when the enemies are inside of that field, this thing is gonna be firing off like cryo damage at enemies. And also every time she hits an enemy, you're gonna have 1 charge of the shield we talked about before. So it's gonna help you like deal more damage and gain more charges. The damage is gonna scale with HP. It's gonna last for 12 seconds and have a cooldown of 12 seconds too. So it's gonna have a 100% uptime. And the burst is only gonna cost 40 energy, which is also pretty good. Her first passive is basically just gonna increase your shield strength, and the second passive is basically just going to increase like the skills damage based around your HP, so it makes it more favorable to build her for like HP. So yeah, that's it for her talents really. She's just like a shielder who deals damage and also applies cryo, and she has a pretty good shield and also pretty decent damage, so she's definitely a great character. So right now for her talent priorities, I would say just upgrade your elemental skill and burst, probably at the same time, because your elemental burst is going to be helping you out with damage, and your elemental skill is going to be helping you out with the shield, and also some damage. So if you want to focus on the shield, upgrade your elemental skill first and then the burst, and if you want to focus on damage, upgrade your burst first and then your elemental skill. Generally, I would say just keep them around the same and that's it. Your auto attacks, you don't really need to upgrade them. Now moving on to our constellations, I'm going to tell you which ones are good and worth it and which ones are not. C1 is basically just going to buff your shield. It's going to make it stronger, and also when you're playing like co-op, it's going to give you like your teammates a shield. So yeah, for the shield strat, I would say it's a pretty good constellation. It's also pretty cheap. So if you had it, it's cool, but it's not really necessary. Even at C0, her shield is going to be fine. But yeah, it's a good constellation overall. Her C2 is just more energy. Every time you hit an enemy with like the stars from your shield, you can gain some energy from this, maybe like 8 to 12 energy. Her burst doesn't really need a lot of energy in the first place, so that's pretty good. I mean, she doesn't really struggle with energy in general, especially if you get like a couple of good energy recharge substats and that's it. But if you don't have any substats of energy recharge, she might struggle a little bit with energy, and you might not be able to cast her burst at a good uptime, especially if your shield is not active for a long time, because her shield is going to be like the one having the energy. When you cast her elemental skill, you're not going to have any energy. So yeah, it's a good constellation in my opinion. It's gonna make it more comfortable to play Layla. It's gonna help you out with energy a little bit, which is pretty good. It's definitely not necessary too, but it's a good constellation. C3 is just gonna increase the level of your elemental skill, which mainly means a stronger shield and also some extra damage. It's also a good constellation, definitely not necessary, but it's not bad. So yeah, I would say it's just good. Now C4 is that every time you fire off like a shooting star from your shield, it's gonna buff the character on the field's auto attacks from Layla's max HP. It's gonna count in as more of like Shinha's auto attacks buff, and it's actually like pretty good. It's not gonna be like super consistent, and you cannot really rely on it to buff like a character who needs auto attack. She cannot like replace Yunjin, for example, or Shinha, but it's actually very, very good. It's not bad at all, so especially if you're using her as like just a shielder, and this is just like a damage bonus, it's definitely gonna be pretty good. Obviously for characters who use their auto attacks. It also scales off with HP, HP, which you're gonna build on Layla anyways. So yeah, it's a very good constellation. Now it's kind of expensive since it's C4, so I don't know if it's like worth going for, but it's a good constellation. C5 is gonna increase the level of your elemental burst. It just means more damage. In my opinion, it's not really worth it, but it's also not bad. C6 is basically just more damage from your elemental burst and skill, and also it's gonna create like the stars on your shield a little bit faster, and that might mean like a little bit more energy, but it's not really that significant. The main thing is more damage, so it's a good constellation. It's pretty much like 40% more damage. Is it worth it? It depends on you. It's a C6, so yeah, it's a good constellation, but in my opinion, it's not really worth like going for. If you get it in the future, then come, but don't like specifically go for it, especially if you're trying to C6 like a 4-star character. In a lot of cases, it's gonna be long. So yeah, it's a good C6, but is it like super good? Is it necessary? No. So as you guys saw here, all of her constellations are gonna be like kind of good. In my opinion, maybe get her C2 or C3. It's gonna make her like more comfortable to play and maybe a little bit stronger, and that's about it really. Even at C0, she's gonna be very fine, so you definitely don't need any of her constellations, but all of them are gonna be good. All of them are gonna add in something, so yeah. Alright, so now moving on to her weapons. So I already did the tier list before for Layla's best weapons. If you want to check it out in details, you can. But to summarize it pretty quick, she doesn't really have that many weapons. Her top weapons are going to be the Key of Hajni's suit and the Jade Cutter. Generally on her weapon, you'd want something that gives you HP, since her shield is going to scale off with HP and her elemental burst damage is going to scale off with HP, so you definitely want enough HP on Layla. And then after that, you might want something that gives you crit, since crit rate and crit damage are going to boost your damage. That if you care about damage. So yeah, the Jade Cutter is going to be pretty perfect. It's going to give you a lot of crit rate and crit damage, and it's also going to increase your HP, which is pretty good. The Key of Hajni's suit is just going to be giving you HP. It's not really going to increase your crit rate or crit damage at all, and you cannot really use the full passive, but it's still a good weapon on Layla just for the HP. Now her next best weapon in my opinion is the Harbinger of Dawn. It's a 3-star weapon, but it's going to give you a lot of crit rate and crit damage, so it's going to be pretty good on Layla. Now it's not going to increase your HP, but the crit rate and crit damage are going to be very good if you want damage. The only downside this weapon is going to have is the low base attack, but Layla doesn't really care that much about that, so you're going to be calm using the Harbinger of Dawn. Now you can use other crit weapons like the Harum Gippiku or the like Mid Splitter. They're going to work too, but in my opinion they're kind of like a waste. You can just use the 3-star Harbinger of Dawn and you're going to be fine. You can also use the Black Cliff and the Black Sword. As I said, only for the crit. They're going to help you with crit rate and crit damage, so if you want to use them you can. And finally, if you want like a support weapon, you can use like the Freedom Sword to support your teammates, or you can use the Favonius to give your teammates energy. These weapons are not really going to work on Layla at all, but they're going to have great support capabilities, so if you want to use her as like a full support, you might use them. But yeah, as I said before guys, she doesn't really have that many great weapons right now. It's pretty much the same thing with Nilo. There are no like HP scaling swords, except for the 5-star Key of Hajni's suit and the Jade Cutter. Hopefully in the future we're going to get like 4-star HP swords, but for right now, these are her weapons that you can use. Now moving on to her artifact sets. Before we continue though, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. That's going to help me a lot and you're going to see more videos, so yeah, please subscribe. Thank you. But yeah, for her artifact sets, generally speaking, her best set I would say is going to be the 4-piece Tenacity of the Millilith. She can use the full set pretty well since her shield is going to be like firing off damage, so you're going to be able to use it. Maybe not like full consistently. It depends on like what characters you're playing and stuff like that, but she definitely can use the full set. And when you do, it's going to increase all of your party members' attack and shield strength, which is pretty good. So yeah, it's going to be a very good supportive set. Also, the 2-piece is going to give you HP, which is very good on Layla too. In my opinion, this is probably like her best fitting set. You can use the 4-piece Noblesse too. It's pretty much a worse like 4-piece Tenacity of Millilith, so I wouldn't really recommend it, but if you want to, you can use it too. It's going to work. It's not going to be as good as the 4-piece Tenacity of Millilith, but it's going to work too. Now, if you want to focus more on like damage, especially on freeze teams and stuff like that, you can use the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer. That's going to be a very good set on her too for damage alone. It's going to give you damage bonus, and it's also going to increase your crit rate, which is pretty good. Obviously, it's more preferred to be played on like freeze teams, but you can play her on non-freeze teams too. Or you can use something more consistent like a 2-piece Blizzard and then a 2-piece Noblesse or 2-piece Tenacity of Millilith. These are also going to be fine and they're going to increase her damage. So yeah, I think that's about it for her artifact sets. It's pretty simple. Now moving on to her artifact stats. So starting off with the main stats, on your Sands you'd want HP, on your Goblin droplet, you'd want cryo damage bonus or HP, and on your circlet, you'd want crit or HP. So if you want to focus on her shield, you can go like full HP, but if you don't and you want to build her like as more balanced, you'd want to get some damage and stuff like that too. You can go HP, cryo damage, and then crit, or maybe HP, cryo damage, and then HP again if you don't want to build crit. It really depends. So if you want to focus on her shield, go full HP. If you don't, then you can go like the normal HP, cryo damage, then crit. Now for the substats, you'd want to focus on HP obviously too. You'd want to get some crit rate, and crit damage, and you'd want to get some energy recharge. Now for the final stats you'd want to have on your Layla, for the crit rate and crit damage, I would say just the usual 50 to 70%, 100 to 140%. If you're playing her in like freeze teams, you're gonna need less crit rate, so maybe go for like 20% crit rate or something like that, since you're gonna gain more from like the blizzard and the cryo resonance and stuff like that. But for like a general build, you want to get normal crit rate. HP, you don't want to get as much as you can depending on how much you want. As I said, if you want to build her as like a shielder, you'd want to focus on getting more HP than crit. If you want to build her more as like a character who does damage, in that case you might want to focus on crit and then get as much HP as you can after getting enough crit. For energy recharge, I would say just get a couple of substats. They're gonna help you a lot and eliminate all of the energy problems. So maybe get like 120 energy recharge or something like that. That's gonna do the job fine. Her burst doesn't really cost a lot of energy, but as I said before, you might encounter like some energy problems in some cases. So just get a couple of substats to make sure everything is good. Alright, so now moving on to her team comps. So for her team comps, she's just like a shielder, so you can use her on any team who needs a shield, basically. Well, she applies cryo, so any team who doesn't mind cryo, you can use her in. So yeah, right off the bat, she's gonna have a lot of teams, but some of her like more specific teams are gonna be like a freeze team, for example. So you can use her with like, let's say Ayaka, then Kokomi, then let's say Layla, and then let's say like Kazuha. She's just like a replacement for Diona in here. She's not gonna give you that much more energy, and she's not gonna heal you, but you're gonna have a stronger shield and also more damage, so you pick and choose. I did a video before where I compared her to like all of the other shielders and specifically Diona, so if you want to check it out in details, you can. You can use her on like a mono cryo team, for example like Kea, Shinha, then let's say Layla, and then Kazuha. That's gonna be a viable team too. You can use her as a shielder for Eula, for example too, like Eula, let's say Raiden, and then let's say Layla, and then maybe Bennett or someone like that. So yeah, she has a lot of teams like melt teams, freeze teams, you know, mono cryo, all of these. And as I said, you can use her as like a general shielder on any team, as long as they don't mind cryo. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you want to say anything, leave it in the comments, and see y'all in the next video. Peace.